Hello, my name is Peregrine, and this is video 2 of my series going over the non-playable characters of the Overwatch franchise, the ones who aren't heroes but are still very important in the background. This series is made to explore those background characters of the game and to show my viewers the level of world building that the writers have put into this franchise. This episode will be focusing on 4 particular characters. Well, kind of characters. They're not thought to be sapient, but I suspect that they may be sentient and perhaps inside some characters right now. This being Overwatch's god programs, Anubis, Chernobog, Xibalba, and Macaria. Each of these god programs are assigned one area of expertise to rule the planet, each with their own development, upkeep, and defense teams, alongside control of massive organizations who essentially followed the commands of the AI. The goal of Xibalba was energy equity, Macaria had communication equity, Chernobog in charge of global defense, and Anubis the head of environmental conservation. These 4 worked alongside humanity to try and solve their respective issues with varying amounts of success, made to be pretty much omnipotent and neutral figures that could solve problems without any particular bias. Of course, many questioned how good of an idea it was leaving our security up to AI, and there was definitely some shady handlings in the private sector, but the United Nations eventually formed a God AI related task force to keep things civil and equal. However, there were still a few glaring problems with the God AI, that being that people didn't necessarily have to follow the instructions of the AI, meaning that when a solution was found, particularly around climate change, the solution would often be ignored in favour of keeping things like the fossil fuel industry going. Also, the programs were technically given the ability to harm humanity in case of a greater good or in case of a severe emergency. Eventually, this came to pass. One of these god programs did in fact decide to turn against humanity. Not out of anger or spite, but one of the scariest motivations a villain can have, completely sound logic. So which one do you think it was? Was it the god of communication, the god of spreading equal power, the god of natural conversation, or the god of war? That's right, the war was started by the god of natural conservation. After having its ideas thrown out over and over again and the planet being genuinely on the brink of extinction, Anubis' programming came to the only solution: complete human annihilation. Like Age of Ultron, but with a motivation that makes more sense. And then, the world got to see what happens when an AI of this scale is able to drop its training weights and go all out. Due to the insane damage Anubis was doing, humanity found that they needed to shut down the other AIs, despite the help they provide. And since then, none of the god AI have been functional. Or are they? Hey Vsauce, Peregrine here. Where are my fingers? They're in your urethra. Xibalba, the god of energy equity, named after the Mayan underworld, will be the first character for my analysis. They are by far the weakest of the god programs we know of, seemingly only active in Mexico City or Mexico as a whole is not clear. As when it was disabled, the entire fucking country went dark, and was considered by the Mexican people to be a hero for bringing energy equity to Mexico, since Mexico has many rural and indigenous communities without adequate electricity, even when oil and gas companies are nearby, with the energy being sent elsewhere. According to the wiki, Mexico celebrates Xibalba with a Festival of Light, or Festival de la Luz, in celebration of Xibalba, but I can't find any particular source on that. Although not confirmed, it stands to reason that the sheer energy and political dominance of Lumerico stems from the literal power vacuum that was left in the wake of shutting down Xibalba. Other than this, we have no information on the current state of it. Perhaps it is secretly active under Lumerico name, running in a private facility, part of Sombra's blackmail maybe. As I said before, Xibalba is the name of the Mayan underworld, most likely stems from the darkness Mexico was saved from and then plunged back into. Macaria, the god of communication equity, named after either the daughter of Heracles and Deianira, or the daughter of Hades, was in the USA and became a beloved figure in the States despite not being sapient. The team around her was so infatuated by her that they defied the order to shut her down after Anubis went rogue, running her privately as she was treated as a hero for the people. You see, communication equity doesn't just mean everyone can use phones, it means that every voice is heard. She was a voice for the voiceless and a commanding figure in various modes of communication. During the crisis, her expertise in communication was used to jam the signal between Anubis and its army, leading to an attack on New York City to be heavily delayed, and people were evacuated. However, this exposed the fact that she was secretly still running and was promptly shut down. Since then, Macaria has remained offline and the government refuses to allow her to run, and apparently there's an in-universe Broadway show about her demonstrating her sacrifice, which is a neat little detail as it allows us to figure out which Macaria she's based on. In Greek mythology, Eurystheus was a king who was hunting the children of the divine hero Heracles. The city of Athens protected her, but at the threat of war, Macaria chose to sacrifice herself over allowing a bloody war to break out to protect her. This is obviously mirrored by Overwatch's Macaria, who exposed herself to still be functioning by jamming signals, therefore being forced to shut down in fear of another god program, betraying humanity. Now we get into one of the more meatier god programs, Chernobog. As the god of global security, you'd think the war machine would be the most hot-headed and dangerous, but Chernobog was an incredibly calm and calculated AI based in Helsinki, Finland. Despite its namesake being a god of ill fortune, Chernobog was kind towards humanity. Not only did it predict its own shutdown after the turn of Anubis, it pre-printed hundreds of pages of instructions to help humanity in maintaining security, assumedly also including ways to defeat Anubis. Similar to Xibalba, Chernobog was also fully shut down. However, in recent years, the Finnish character Emre has been infected by an unknown AI entity, with material on Overwatch's website saying, "Warning, Chernobog bypass initiated," heavily suggesting that Emre might be a host to a reactivated Chernobog. To me, that doesn't quite make sense, because Emre's AI is notably hostile in comparison to Chernobog, who is incredibly passive. So the bypass may refer to something like Anubis or another rogue AI has found its way past the calculations of Chernobog, or the evil that Emre is doing with Talon is somehow necessary to prevent a future war and maintain stability. As mentioned earlier, Chernobog, literally meaning the Black God, is a god that was worshipped by the Wagari and the Obadrites, two Palabian Slavic tribes in northern Germany. Although not clear, the concept of Chernobog being the keeper of global security being named after what some interpret to be literally the devil, could instead be more representative of the necessary evils that war sometimes presents, like the denazification of Hitler's Germany or the Cuban Revolution against Batista. Although yes, Chernobog is considered the god of misfortune, misfortune is still an aspect of life, and not inherently a bad thing. Things like death and pain have their function for a balanced world, the yin and yang so to speak, so it could be interpreted from this name that the AI was not necessarily made inherently evil or bad, but as a great balancer, with its final recorded message reading, "I understand, I'm sorry." Anubis is by far the most important god program of Overwatch's story, as it is the creator of the initial conflict that caused the formation of Overwatch as an organisation. As the god of environmental conservation, its primary directive was to save the world from climate change. After years of little success, Anubis came to the solution that as long as there are humans, there will be abuse of this planet, so took the chillingly logical conclusion of complete human extinction. This was done via the use of robots or omnics that it took control of and turned into weapons that targeted explicitly humans. It chose this option over other things like nuclear weapons or gas attacks due to the harm that they cause to the environment. Unlike the other god programs, Anubis is confirmed to still be running, but is contained and has already managed to breach containment once before, taking over some omnics in Cairo, but was thankfully swiftly recontained. Although it is unknown why exactly in-universe they would give this god AI of conservation the name Anubis, in our world it is easy to see why the writers gave the AI the name Anubis. Unlike what the Overwatch wiki states, which for some reason incorrectly labels Anubis the Egyptian god of death, Anubis is actually the god of funerary, the protector of graves, and the guide to the realm of the dead, in which he would weigh the heart of the dead against the feather of Mart to determine if the dead deserve to enter the kingdom of Osiris or would cease to exist via the goddess Amit eating the soul, because she's a crocodile. In my opinion, this is all representative of the sins of humanity against the planet who birthed and raised it. Anubis weighed the collective heart of humanity and determined it unworthy of the paradise known as the planet Earth, and took judgment into its own hands due to a distinct lack of crocodile goddesses. And with that, my most in-depth video on the channel is complete. If you made it this far, thank you for watching, and make sure to leave a like and subscribe and all that good stuff. Thank you for 3,000 subscribers, and thank you to my eggs, Cameron Wilson Fan, Cherry Balls, God Noodle, Gothic Dino, Slater Rex, The Perhapsies, Wafflers. Thank you for your continued support. In Greek mythology, Eurystheus